What's up, Dad Bod Nation? Dad Bod Steve. Got another great story for you today. Someone who grew up in my local neck of the woods. I've got someone who's got a great story. She went through recovery. She's getting her life back in order and she's going through school now. Give a big welcome to Vanessa MacNeill. Vanessa, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Go ahead and introduce yourself for the audience.
Hey, my name's Vanessa. Um, what else do you want me to say? I'm Vanessa. Yeah, I grew up down in Utah County, and I just moved back up to Salt Lake County from St. George. I was down there for 6 years when I finally decided to get serious about my recovery. And then I came back. My son's up here, so it was time for me to come back. I was fine. I finally felt ready. So
And you're in school again, right?
I absolutely am in school.
What
Sometimes
are you studying?
I am in the Bachelor of Social Work program. So I have another couple years before I have my master's. 2 years I'll have my master's, and then I will be able to be a therapist and help people in the same way that they've helped me. So
Oh, that is awesome. And I've always said this before. I did a podcast with Kyle Hickman. He's a therapist now and he
cool.
went through rehab. The best people that you can trust are the ones who went through it.
Yeah.
If I became a therapist and tried to help people never gone through addiction, they'd be like, "You don't know what you're talking about." But having someone like you who's gone through it, who's gone through the whole process, that's just priceless. So
Yeah.
that is awesome on you.
Thank you. And the crazy thing
No
is like
problem.
I wanted to be a social worker before I went through all the stuff in my life that got me to where I'm at right now. But it's just cool to be able to go back after I took such a huge break. It's cool to be able to go back and just know now that this is, the path that my life was leading me on is still the path that my life is leading me on. It just took I just took a real huge break. So it's really cool. I'm grateful for it.
That is awesome. And I don't envy you right now. I went back to school and got a couple master's degrees late. I hated it. It was so
I don't
hard.
I don't envy
So
me either. I hate it most every day, but I'm just like, check one more box. I've got one more semester down, one more semester, so, I'm getting
that
there.
is awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna do great. You're gonna do great. You're gonna help a lot of people. So
Thank
that'll be
you.
awesome.
Thank you.
So go ahead and tell everybody about how, life was growing up. Where did you grow up? How was family? And start going into your story.
Okay, for sure. So, I was born in California. I lived there until I was about 9 years old, maybe. Um, and then my family moved to Utah. We moved all over the place. My dad was a physician, and I lived in New York City for a little while, in Texas. I've lived in Washington, but always Utah was pretty much home. So, I was raised in a very religious family, and yeah, so I guess Utah was the place, and I love it here. It was just difficult for me. It was difficult for me in a lot of ways because this can be such a religious place and also such a, I guess anywhere can be, but such a difficult place to be as well. And I was, yeah, I stuck to the very religious side for a long time, and then all of a sudden I went to the other side. Um, and
So so you grew up in Utah, very religious, and I grew up here too, very religious. My parents were LDS converts, and so I grew up in the whole very strict, you got to live it, and the letter of the law kind of thing. So being very religious, growing up in southern Utah County, which is very LDS populated, right? What was your first experience, getting into drugs? How did you get introduced to everything?
so let's see. I would say, all right. So I was raised in a family that was, there was a lot of mental illness in my family. And I graduated high school. I'll go back a little. I graduated high school when I was 15 years old. Um, reason being, reason being is because it was super important for me to make my dad proud of me. And I found out that that was a way for him to be proud of me. I grew up there was a lot of trauma, all sorts of trauma with my father in my household. My mom was my saving grace. My mom was the light of my life. She still is. But so I graduated high school when I was 15, and I moved away from my family and I started college. And then my family moved away, and it was way too early. Like, I was still a child, and I thought because I skipped grades when I was younger, so I was like, "Oh, yeah, like, I'm the same age as anyone that's, you know, that was in the same grade as me," but I didn't realize that I never had the opportunity to be a child. Um, and so things started to fall apart a little bit, once my family moved away. They moved to Washington State, um, and, um and then they moved back, like, a year later, and, my brother and my sister both attempted suicide within a couple weeks of each other, and because I like to for some reason, always growing up, and I've really had to do a lot of, like, therapy and stuff to get away from that, but wanting to take on all of the pain of my family and take on their burdens because I didn't seem to struggle in the same ways up to that point. I've struggled so much more than them, since then, but in my own ways. But I blamed myself for both of them attempting suicide. And that was kind of a turning point for me. Um, and I remember I was at the hospital. My brother was in the emergency room and he was 12 years old. I was 16 at the time. My sister was, um, 18 and she was in the psych unit in like the same hospital. And my brother was in the emergency room and they were thinking about putting him on like this liver donor list because he had destroyed his liver. And I don't know why I was like, it's my fault, but I was like, it has to be because of me, because I thought that I could hold my family up in some way. I was like, oh, I'll just make sure that my family's okay. It's not my right to do that, and it's not my place to do that, and I don't have the power to do that. At that time, though, I really, really took that blame upon myself. And so I remember getting in the car and I was like, I'd heard about in some of my college classes, I'd heard about different drugs and different things. Like, I didn't have any experience with that kind of stuff, but I was like, all right, I'm either going to, like, suicide for me wasn't an option. It 100% was not an option for me. But I was like, I could feel everything crumbling. Like, if I don't really know how to explain it, but like my brain and everything was just like, I'm gonna have to be, in some sort of a institution or asylum or something like that because completely losing it. And then I remember thinking, okay, I can change the chemical makeup of my brain if I use drugs, which is so weird to think about now. But I was just like, I can do that. So I got in my car. I drove up to Salt Lake. I got off an exit. Wasn't familiar with Salt Lake, but I found somebody that looked like they were on drugs on the side of the road, and I rolled down my window and I was just like, with some money, because I didn't know. I was just like, "Can you give can you get me something?" And, yeah, and it like, I was, like, thinking about movies. I've seen them all. What's up? And I didn't even know what to ask for, and I didn't know what I got, but that was the beginning of my downfall. And I ended up dropping out of school, um, and I was away from my roommates. They didn't know, like, what had happened to me. They were, like, filed a missing persons report. My family didn't know what happened to me. I didn't know if my sister and brother were okay because I just did not I disconnected myself completely. Um, but I do wanna say none of that stuff is anyone's fault but my own. It was my choice to do that. Sometimes I say that and I'm like, "It's not what happened," or, it was my own perception of what was going on. And so, yeah, that kinda
And
started
you
with
didn't
this.
even know what it was that you took. You just
I
took
did,
it.
and I was too embarrassed to ask. I thought that it might be either cocaine or methamphetamine because that's kinda what it looked like, but I had no idea, and it ended up being methamphetamine. I found that out later. But I had no idea. I didn't know anything about, like, those kind of like hard drugs. I knew nothing about it. And yeah, and I ended up doing just so many different things. And it literally took me, it was like a month and a half before I could figure out like what somebody's phone number was. I didn't even know where I was. Like I really went in deep. Somebody gave me a bunch of like 70 something hits of acid, just like all in this like short period of time. And I was just 16 years old and I completely lost it. I lost sense of everything. And
And it's amazing that you came back from that because even one hit of acid can really
oh,
disconnect
I
the
know.
wires in the
There's
brain, right?
yeah, some people that I've spoken to or that know me, it did change the entire course of my life in some ways, but I'm not going to say that it was just, that it was just like all like I like the person I am today. It did change, just like I was like, oh, change the chemical makeup of my brain. It definitely did. It definitely did. And then when I find the funny thing is I've never been, I was never very close to my dad, even though I wanted him. I wanted to be close to him. But I remember, like, finally remembered my parents' phone number, and I called, and my dad answered the phone, and he was like, I was trying to tell him I need help, you know. So he told me the address. I made my way over there because I couldn't remember the address to where they lived. Um,
And this was in Washington?
no, they moved back to Utah.
Oh, they moved back,
Yeah,
okay.
they were in Washington for a year and then they moved back. And I was living separately from them. I was going to college, living separately from them. And yeah, I remembered his phone number or my family's phone number. I called and he told me to meet him outside. And so I went over there and I was like, Dad, I need help. Like, I need help. I really messed up. And I was very ashamed and embarrassed because I just wanted my dad to be proud of me. But I was like, Dad, I messed up. Like, I haven't been to school for a month and a half. I've failed out of my classes. I need help. And my dad is, like I said, he was a physician. So he went into the garage and he came out and he threw me a bag of syringes. And I was like, Dad, like, what is that? Because at that time, I did not use syringes. Like, this was the very beginning of my journey into, my drug use. And I was like, I'm terrified, still am, of needles. Um, doesn't mean I didn't move to that because I did after a certain period of time. But I said, Dad, I don't do that. I just needed help. I need rehab. And he said, well, if you don't use that way, you might as well start because it'll get things over with quicker. And then he told me to stay away from my mom. I was not welcome at his home anymore and to leave. And so I did. I left because in my heart, I was like, I failed my family. I failed myself. I was supposed to be this somebody, um, you know, graduating early. And my dad was so like, oh, you're going to be somebody. And so I was like, well, this is what I deserve. So I left and I became a street kid in Salt Lake. Um, and that was kind of the beginning of everything. And no, it was the beginning of a different phase of my life.
And you
And
even asked for help, right? Yeah, you were
oh yeah, I
asking
asked
for
him. I
help.
said, "Please, I made a huge mistake. I've made a huge mistake. I need help." I was like, "I want to go back to school. Like, I don't know what to do." My dad was he was very black and white thinking, and he was like, "You have failed me as my daughter," and he was like, "So I don't want you in my family." Um, and the thing is I believed him. I believed that I'd failed, and I failed myself, and I was reaching out for help from somebody that I didn't. It was hard for me because I understood that my dad loved in a different way than I ever did because I'm this super loving, like super emotional person, and my dad was not. Um, so yeah, so that kind of started everything. I went to I've been to so many rehabs, multiple rehabs. The only time that I would stop using was if I was in rehab and if I had structure and I was like, I'm very good with structure, very good with structure. But then when I get out and there's no structure, I just go back off to the races, or I did in my past. Um, and yeah, and then I'd have brief times where I was um, like when I've been pregnant twice. I have 2 children. It was easier for me to stop using for some, I mean, not for some reason. It's because I had something that I was caring about instead of just me, which I did not care about. So it was very easy for me to stop using when I was pregnant. The problem is though, is that I didn't have it. I didn't have that understanding, or like my addiction was so, heavy, because that's what addiction is. Addiction like gets you. Um, that as soon as I had my kids, I was like, oh, okay, like I don't have them inside of me anymore. I'm going to start using again. Not really like taking into account that, you know, your kids need you, um, even after they're born. So I don't know. I was just making some weird excuse in my head, like I'm not going to, take the choice from them and use while I'm pregnant. But it was, I still neglected my children because I started using after I had them. Um, and yeah, so that's something that the cool thing is that I have a really, really good relationship. I'm so grateful with both my children. Super great relationship. I have my son all of the time. My daughter's older. She's 24, so she lives in a different state. But they're both just they've been so gracious and so amazing, because I wouldn't be upset if they were, I'd understand if they were upset with me. And I'm sure that they are in some ways, but they are very, very loving and very understanding of like where I'm at right now. Um,
And that relationship of kids with their parents is so different than parents with their kids, right? Like you just told the story of your dad. He loved in a different way. He was a little bit more cold, right? But
Very cold.
kids, and I'm sure if your dad came to you and said, "Hey, let's reconnect," being his child, you'd be like, "Hey, yeah." And
Oh,
we
yeah,
see that with
I always told my dad, my dad at one point told me, because like I said, he was very, intellectual. He was a physician and an attorney. After he became a physician, he was like, "That's not good enough, so I'm gonna be an attorney." So he was just all of these things that I was just like, and I was like, I told him I want to be a social worker, and he was like, drop out of school if you want to be a social worker because that's not good enough. And I was like, oh, I thought, I'm just a different person than the person that he was. And also, I would always tell him that, Dad, like, I love you. And he said, I don't. At one point, he said, I don't want you to call me Dad. You can call me Dr. MacNeill, and I'll be your patient. I mean, he said, you'll be my patient. You can come and get syringes or whatever, but we're not doing the dad daughter thing. And I remember telling him, because he said, I took you out of the will. You'll never get one penny from me. And I said, Dad, and he was like, what do you think about that? And I told him, Dad, and this was like such a real moment for me. I told him, Dad, I said, thank you. Thank you for taking me out of your will. Thank you for, and he's like, do you know that that means you'll get nothing from me? And I said, I've been searching for so long to find a way to show you what love means to me, Dad. It doesn't mean money, it doesn't mean anything. And I said, so thank you for taking me out of your will, because when you're on your deathbed and I'm standing next to you and I'm holding your hand and I'm telling you that I love you, I said, maybe then you'll know what love means to me. And
what that is powerful. I mean, I did not expect you to say that after what he said to you. I mean, that is big time, like huge on your part. You know what I mean? That shows that you're the bigger person in that situation.
well, thank you.
And And so, yeah, I mean, I don't think my parents have ever told me ever, "You're out of our will. We don't want you to
Yeah.
call us mom or dad." I mean, my dad was a chemical engineer. He was very intellectual. Everything was logical. Engineers make everything harder, right? They just do. And he never said, "You call me Dr. Solon." He was always very, "Call me dad." My mom was always, "Call me mom." And so I've never experienced that myself. So that must have been terrible for you to go through, and just kind of downtrodden on you wanting to get help. Or
Yeah.
did that prevent you from actually seeking help in the future, or did you say the opposite and say, "You know what? I'm going to show you I can do this, and I'm going to prove you wrong of what you're thinking about me."
Well, at some point it did. For a long time, it did not. For a long time, like I inside of myself every time I went to treatment. So the times that I went to treatment, I probably went to 10 or 11 treatment centers, residential treatment centers. And like I said before, I'm really good with structure. And I was like, I can do this. I can do this. And then I would just, it was like the voice in my head, that negative voice that we have in our heads. That's just like that we kind of have to stop and we get to learn how to do that. Um, it was always in the voice of my father, and it was it was hard for me to stop that or to not believe it because I was like, my dad's telling me something. My dad has to love me because that's how it's supposed to work. My dad has to like love me. So, and he wouldn't be telling me things that aren't true. So it was a very weird balance for me because I was just like, I must even though inside, not in my head, definitely not in my head, but in my soul, I was like, he's wrong. He's wrong. All these terrible things that he says about me, or all these, you know, or there's something going on inside of him that's like making it so that he can't. But in my brain, that separation from the brain and the heart and the soul, in my brain, I was like, this is who I truly am. So I need to just follow that path because I'm a nobody. Um, for a long time, that went for a long time. And then things kind of like went there was a my whole life, I thought that my life was like couldn't be any more crazy, right? When I was 25 years old though, I was 25 years old, and like I said, being raised in the church, my dad was, he was branch president at one time in a place that we were at. Like he was, I don't know if it was, I don't know. He held, you know, he was, I thought that he was just a really good Mormon guy. Um, I don't even know if that's what you call it these days, but Um, no, it's not.
What is it? It's the Church of Jesus
Church of
Christ
Jesus
of
Christ of
Latter-day
Latter-day
Saints,
Saints,
right?
yes. I haven't been to
Yeah.
church since I was, like, 14, so but my
Okay.
family and I like to be respectful. I like to be respectful about, like, how I just don't know the terminology, so when I
It
was
it just changed,
yeah,
they just barely, and it was funny because, I'm LDS, right? I'm
yeah,
active in it and everything, and
yeah,
and people would be like, "Oh, are you Mormon?" I don't get offended. It's
yeah,
yeah,
okay, I just don't
I
know, like,
am,
I even if I don't like, I was raised and I loved it. I know all the primary songs, and I remember having, good feelings, like, when I went to church and I was all about it, and my mom was super into it. She was one of those beautiful, just humans. And yeah, and I don't ever want to be disrespectful to any because I love the fact that if anyone finds whatever they find, whether it be religion, spirituality, I am all for it. And I will never be someone that's like, ew, I'm not gonna do that ever. Um,
yeah, if something makes someone a better person,
yeah,
why
why
would you wanna
not?
discourage that,
I think
right? At
it's
all, and
beautiful. Yeah, I
oh,
think it's
exactly.
absolutely beautiful. Um, Anyway, so when I was 25, and tell me if I'm talking too much, but when I was 25,
Totally, totally good.
okay,
Tell your story. I mean, this is for you to tell everyone what you went through and how you got over it, and the success that you have today. So,
thank you. Okay, so when I was 25 years old, when I was 25 years old, my father murdered my mom. Um,
wait, what?
yeah, yep, he did. It was very, very highly in the media. This happened in Pleasant Grove. Um, And my mom was just it was very much in the media, mostly because my mom was this beauty queen. My mom was absolutely everything. My dad was a very prominent person, doctor, lawyer, so it was like highly, highly publicized or like in the media. Um, and then I thought that I knew what rock bottom was, and the rock bottom below that, and the one below that. This was not even in the like the same dimension or realm, because that's the last thing that I ever thought would happen or could happen. Um, and then my brother, the one that had attempted suicide when he was 12, right? When I was telling you about in the hospital. My brother on the the morning after, so very early in the morning after my mom's birthday, 3 years after she died, he died by suicide. So he followed through.
I'm
And
so
then,
sorry to hear that.
oh, thank you. Me too. Me too. Um, I've found peace in it all these days, which is cool. Anyway, my dad was tried. Um, his trial um, was recorded and shown around the world, um, and so it was like always in the news, um, all across the nation. I never was a part of any of. I've been asked to be interviewed for lots of different things. Dateline, 2020, Nancy Grace, like all, and I've always turned it down, um, because for me it was I kept it very close. Um, and then on the so 2 days before the 10th anniversary of my mom's death, my dad died by suicide at Utah State Prison. Because he had been found guilty and he wasn't getting out of prison. Um, and it's strange because in between all those times, I fell apart even more so than I ever had. Like I said, that rock bottom, it can always get lower. And I was very afraid that I was going to die. I had overdosed multiple times. I had a heart attack. Um, just so many things because I couldn't get a grasp on the reality of like the reality of my world. It did not seem, um, real to me. And so I stayed in a state of where I was choosing to not be in reality, to have an altered state of reality. I was choosing that because then I could just, it's not that I didn't feel, people say that they do drugs so that they don't feel stuff. There's no, for me, I felt everything, but also it was like I was escaping in some way. Um, yeah, and then I'd been on probation. I was on, paper for so many years. And then I'll move to like how things changed. Um, so I
So
got
yeah, what I usually ask people is,
yeah.
do you like what was the moment of realization,
Oh, yeah.
right? That something had to change, and then what is your why at the same time? Like those are the two things a lot of people say, here's the pinpoint, and they can always pinpoint those locations in their life
Oh, yeah.
as to this is when it really hit me and this is my why and this is why I keep it. And
Okay.
so yeah, go ahead. Tell us your realization. What was the point where you said something has to change?
Okay, so I got finally got done with probation after like 12 years or something that I'd been on paper for like 12 years, and I got off of paper. And so I wasn't on probation anymore. I didn't have, even though probation didn't keep me from using drugs, like I still did, but it had I had some sort of a tether, a tether to, not completely losing it. And, and so I got off of paper and I became very terrified. And like I said previously, suicide was never an option for me. It became an option though, and I attempted suicide. Um, I hung myself, and it was a very out of body experience for me. I could see it was like I was watching myself doing what I was doing, and I couldn't stop myself from doing it. Um, Very luckily, um, somebody else was there. An ex-boyfriend of mine was there. He ran into the room and he was able to cut me out of the cord that was, um, the cord that I was entangled in. But I didn't get revived. I got revived by um, the emergency response. Um, and it really did a number on me. Like it really, really caused some damage to my brain. And And after that, I just remember throwing my hands up, and I didn't feel like for a long time that I could pray to a power that was higher than mine. I didn't know if I had a connection to, and God can be anything. God is universe, whatever it is to you, your higher power. I finally got to a point because for so many years I was like, I cannot ask for help because I don't deserve it. Finally, I was like, please help me. Like, whoever, whatever's out there, please. And it was a very real prayer. Um, and I hadn't prayed like that since when I was a child. I remember praying once because I was in a really bad situation, but I just said, please help me. Um, and then I ended up, some friends of mine were like, let's go to St. George for the weekend. And I was like, hey, let's go. They invited me down there because I had all the drugs and they could, they could get me a room and it would be way cheaper and I just supply it because I didn't care. I shared with everyone, which is like, oh, I'm like, I'm a good person. No, that's not. And so I went down there and then when the weekend was over, they were like, all right, pack up, let's get to the car. I packed everything up, walked out to the car, and I was like, I cannot get in the car. And they were like, what do you mean you can't get in the car? And I said, I'm not going. I will not, I'm not going. I knew nobody. I didn't know anybody. Like St. George wasn't my zone. I had a cousin that lived in Hurricane, hadn't talked to her in so many years. Like since she was like 18 and she was 45 or something. Had no idea where to go, no idea what to do. But I said, I said, you guys leave and I'll figure it out. And I figured out where the shelter was. I left everything behind except for my little weekend bag. Um, and that's where my life started. It was finally the first time where I chose to not I wasn't being forced by probation or charges. I was free and clear of everything and I had no idea. I was like, what am I doing? But I knew that, I'm going to cry. I knew that God
Totally
was on
good.
my side. I was like, oh, you know, I have been hurt.
For
And so,
sure.
yeah. And so that's how it started. I just went to the shelter. I found a treatment center, got into treatment, got into sober living, stayed down there, just built a beautiful foundation and started working in treatment. Decided I was like, yeah, I'm not too old to go back to school. I'm going to do it. Even though I had to talk myself up, I was like, I talked to my sister and I was like, I'm way too old. I'm way too old. I haven't been to school since I was 16, and I was in my 40s, So I'm just like, well, I'm still in my 40s, but like I was in my 40s when I started again and I'm very grateful that I did. Like being able to push past that fear, like I know that I can do stuff today. Like I can do things. I can do things super afraid. Um and this transition moving up here, I'm doing things that I'm super afraid of. Um with my new job and everything like that. But it's cool because it's like one foot in front of the other. And then I look back at like where I was and where I am today, and I'm just like, whoa, like I forgot to be grateful. I forgot for a few seconds to be grateful or for like a day to be grateful for where I'm at today. And like, I'm pretty proud of myself, you know?
Oh, you should be. You've gone through a huge feat. You've battled some major demons. I mean, not a lot of people can say they've gone through what you've gone through. I definitely can't say that. And so you've gone through a lot. So being
Yeah.
where you're at is huge. Like congratulations. I
Thank you.
guarantee you there's a lot of people proud of you. We're friends on Facebook. That's how we met.
Yeah.
And I see your post and you do have a lot of support, which is really cool because the
Oh,
recovery community, I think I say this every podcast. Recovery community is one of the best, most supportive communities that's out there
yeah,
because
it is.
people want to see everyone else succeed, right?
Yeah.
And so going through that, you're doing an awesome job.
Thank you
And
so
and a
much.
lot of people are proud of you. This is the first time we've talked face to face. I'm proud of you and I've
Thank
been
you.
able to
I'm
see
proud of
the things that
you.
you've gone through. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
We
But
all
yeah, no, it
sorry, we all
oh yeah,
have struggles, dude. Like we all have the craziest thing that I like, I've come to realize is that like, you see, when our kids are little and like the craziest like thing that's ever happened to them maybe is that they like fall over, don't even get hurt, but they're like scared and they cry and it's like this complete meltdown that might happen or whatever. That's like the most horrible thing that's happened to them at that point. But that's it, and they don't have anything else to weigh it against. Um, and everybody is that way. The worst thing that's ever happened in your life is the worst thing that's ever happened in your life. So we're all on level playing ground. You know what I mean? Like other people be like, I can't believe, that you've gotten through that or that you've done that. Well, me neither. And also, whatever's happened in someone else's life, the most horrible thing that's happened to them, we made it through it. They made it through it. We're doing this together. Like we're all on this level playing field. There's nothing that happens that's like, oh, you've had way more trauma than someone else because someone else's trauma that's the worst trauma is the worst trauma to them. And we just got to find a way to make it through, and
definitely.
I'm grateful, dude. I'm grateful. I keep saying this, but like I'm grateful for everything that's happened in my life. I'm grateful because I know, my dad took away the most beautiful and bright light, not just in my world, but in a lot of people's worlds. Like she was an angel walking on this earth, and I love my father. Um, and so the cool thing that I can take from that is that I know that whatever happens in this life, I have the capability and the capacity to love no matter what. And that's huge for me. That's huge. And I also don't get to use what's happened in my life as an excuse to stay high anymore. I will never, and I didn't even realize I was doing that until this last time that I got into recovery. I will not like let the the feelings and the love and the everything that I have for my family, I will never use it as an excuse to get high ever again. I won't do that. If I were to get high again, it wouldn't be for that reason, but like for a long time. And I can't say, I'm truly hoping, but no one can say like, "Oh, I'm never getting high again," because you just can't say that. You just can't, or else you're just gonna probably get high immediately. um, But for me, yeah, that will never be a reason for me to run away from, like, my memories of my family that I love. Yeah,
Well, and they're definitely learning experiences too, right?
totally.
If we always forgot every mistake we made, we'd never learn from that, and I say it all the time to the kids at my school, I say it to the people in rehab. Failure is a part of life. It's not a bad thing. The word failure has such a negative connotation to
I
it,
know.
especially in school, because the kids kids nowadays, and a lot of the kids that we work with, especially, they don't want to raise their hands because they don't want to be wrong, because they don't want to be made fun of, because they don't
Right.
want to be embarrassed. But
Yeah.
it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to make mistakes because then you learn problem solving skills,
Yeah, you
right?
learn all those things. Yeah.
And so I kind of apply that to you because you went to rehab, probably court based, I'm guessing a lot of the times it was court
Multiple
decisions.
times, yeah, or, like, trying to stay away from charges, you know what I mean? That they told me if I went
Yeah.
to rehab, then I might not get as harsh of charges, yeah.
And then you're in St. George, you decide not to get in the car with your friends and you say, I'm going to go get help. And you got help because it was your decision,
Yeah, I was
which
like,
is huge.
"Maybe it'll work this time, but I definitely don't wanna die. I do not wanna die. I don't wanna do that for myself, for my family, and especially for my children." Like, I don't want them to have the same experience that I had, and I know that I can't choose, like, if I were to die, but I'm definitely not gonna choose to just throw away my life anymore. You know, that's not something that so that helped me out a lot too, and that gets to, like, why do I do it? Because, you know, today I know, even though sometimes I falter with, like, everyone gets, like, these moments where you doubt yourself, but today I know that I'm worthy of a life that I've that I dreamed of when I was young, and then I stopped dreaming of for a long time. But I'm back to that now. I know that I'm worthy, and I know that my children, I get to today I'm okay accepting, like, the way that my children look at me. I'm able to understand when my children look at me and the things that they say to me, I know they're not lying. So I get to see myself from their eyes, and it's a pretty rad feeling because, yeah, they see me as being pretty cool, so even though
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not that cool. I'm kind of a nerd.
Hey, I don't think my kids think I'm very cool either. So, I mean,
Yeah.
same
Well,
thing. I
it
think,
doesn't mean that they want me near them. My son does not. He's like, "Do not if my friends are around, please don't get too close." I'm just like, "I got it. Now I've got it." But when it's just me and him, he'll let me kiss him for sure. So I know what's really going on there. He loves me.
and I want to go back to what you said, and I want a lot of people to understand this too, especially if they're struggling with drugs right now, if they're not successful in rehab right now.
Yeah.
And a lot of people go to rehab multiple times. It's okay.
Oh my
Sometimes you have to
gosh.
find the rehab that works for you, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes one doesn't work and you go somewhere else and they're running totally different and it works for you. But if you're struggling and you say, I'm not worthy, that is one of the biggest lies you can tell yourself because
Oh, yeah.
everyone is worthy, everyone has worth, everyone is valuable, right? And so as soon as we can get over those things and not just drugs and rehab, but people going through depression, people going through a hard time, maybe people
Anything.
someone lost their job,
Anything.
anything, we have to remember we are worthy, we are valuable. And it might be a hard time in our life, but if we can get over that, we can see those benefits,
Yeah,
right?
and even if you don't like, the thing is even if you don't believe it about yourself, for a long time I didn't. I found there was one person, I had a therapist, her name's Crystal. She told me, "I know you don't love yourself, Vanessa. Like, I know you don't." And this is when I was in treatment. It took me a while, but she was like, "If you could just put, like, out into, like, way far out into the whatever, past the stars, this little teeny beam of light that says that maybe," because she was like, "I love you. And maybe way far out in the distance, maybe, I'm not asking you to believe me, but maybe there might be a little glimmer of light that I'm telling the truth." She's like, "Just keep it way far out there." And I was like, "Yeah, no, nope, don't believe it, don't believe it." But I kept it out there. And then every day that I was like, maybe, probably not, maybe 99% not, but like 0.01%, maybe. And then it started coming closer every day that I showed up and said, maybe, came closer and closer. So I borrowed that love from her. I borrowed it from her until I could make it, it was really cool the day that I was finally like, I was sitting in group and I was like, I love myself. And I just kind of screamed it out. And I was, like, so embarrassed because I was like, "What did I just do?" And I meant it, and that was cool because I get to keep doing that, and it's not like when you get to that point, it's not like, "Oh, okay, I love myself. Cool, we're there now, never gonna go away." Because things happen in our lives, and it's still we just have to keep doing that. Like, maybe, oh, yes, you know? We're all deserving of that love no matter what we struggle with. Drugs, like you said, drugs, depression, anxiety, abuse in any ways, like self-hatred, self-loathing, whatever it is, we're exactly the same, all of us. That's a cool thing. I'm like, "Hey, you are love, and so am I." Like, we're both love. Cool.
And sometimes it takes just that one person to believe in us, right? Like
Yeah,
just one to make us realize something that we don't see, which is
yeah.
awesome. And you said your therapist's name was Crystal.
Mhm.
So shout out to Crystal. Like,
Shout
thank
out to
you
Crystal,
for
I love
helping
her.
her.
That's my
And
girl. Yeah.
hopefully she watches this, right? So she can see that
I
recognition
mean
because some of the best things you can hear from someone is, "Hey, you helped me with that." I had no idea I helped one. I did a podcast with one of my old students, Janessa. She's a I would say a bodybuilder, but she's a physical trainer.
uh-huh.
And I said, "Well, what made you want to be a physical trainer?" And she said, "Actually, you did because one practice, you asked me what I wanted to do, and I said I was thinking of this, and you said you'd be good at that." And I had no idea that that's what influenced her.
Yeah,
And
good
I'm
for
sure it's not
you.
the only thing, but she said, "Yeah, that was one of the biggest things." And I'm like, "Wow, oh, that's really cool,
I
actually."
mean,
And I had no idea.
give yourself
And
credit
she
for that.
graduated and she graduated 10 years ago, so it took 10 years for me to realize that, because it was the I think it was the last season that I coached her, she was on my soccer team, so
Good for
it's just that
you.
one person. Yeah, if we can get that one person to and if we can be that one person, that's even better. If we can be that one person who
Yeah,
helps someone,
yeah,
then it just creates that chain reaction and keeps going and keeps going and keeps going
that is so
because
important.
yeah, even if it's just one person, then they help someone else, and then they help someone else, right? And it just keeps going, and it's like a snowball,
Yeah,
and so
I think that's the
that's
most
awesome.
powerful thing that you said, be that one person. Just be that one person, because you really don't know. You have no idea, like, that you might have smiled at someone walking down the street, dude, not knowing what they're going through, and you might have stopped them and never known who they are, and that might have been enough to keep them alive for one more day. So, thank you for being that person. Thank you
Yeah,
for being that
definitely,
person.
everyone can be that person, and I know you said you knew John Lewis, who I did a podcast with, and he came to my school. He said in that podcast, he said, "I just made a challenge for myself to say hi to 3 people a day just to see what it did," and he
Yeah,
said, "And the results were crazy. Usually 2 out of the 3 people just ignored me or looked at me like I was crazy, and 1 person actually said hi back and engaged with me."
yeah,
Maybe we just say hi to one person who just needs it because they don't feel seen, right? And
exactly.
I think there's a lot of people that don't feel seen. And when we realize that, we could be that one thing that changes them just for that day.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love it. Cool.
Well, thank you so much for your story, Vanessa. That
That
was
was long,
crazy.
I'm
I,
sorry.
I'm No, don't apologize. I mean, you tell it as it is, tell it how it needs to be. But and the great thing is you were open and you shared your vulnerabilities with everybody, which I think a lot of people need to see. A lot of people have a hard time talking about those things. And so hopefully it inspires someone to come out and tell their story and improve themselves. So I appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to say to our listeners that are out there?
I just appreciate whoever's listening. Everyone keep listening. This dude's doing some cool stuff, so I'm just really grateful to be a part of it, so thank you.
Oh, I appreciate you joining. I mean, this has been great getting to know people and being a part of this community. And so I
Yeah.
appreciate you coming. So thank you guys for watching. We appreciate you. Thank you again, Vanessa, for coming in. We'll see you guys next time.